Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. And for today's video, let's just chat a little bit about preparations for Archtempered Rey Dau since he's getting ready to come out. I figured one good thing to do would be to go in and practice some fights against Rey Dau. Obviously, you're a little bit limited on the difficulty for what you can practice right now. Like, say, I'm just going in on a 3-star Archtempered, not Archtempered, God. A 3-star Tempered. So, not the absolute hardest version of him that I can get, but I'm having a hard time getting anything harder than the 3-star version of him to pop up. To be honest, I've never really paid too much attention to how many star ratings something is outside of Gore or Archweld. Rey Dau himself, not a terribly difficult fight, but he's got a lot of cool little moves that go on that can catch you off guard, and there's several of them that I highly suspect, unless you're capped out on defense, which, by the way, keep your eye on that Chatacabra mission if you haven't capped out your defense yet, as at least a little bit of a preparation note. So if you haven't capped out your defense, or you're not running a decently balanced set with some defensive build to it, I would imagine there's several moves that he has that are going to do quite a bit of damage. I actually think I'm currently running at least 1 point in guard. So my guard is boosted just a little bit, which guard is already really good in wilds. But for a weapon that has some blocking ability, if you're worried about defense, probably beefing up your guard a little bit in preparation is not a terrible idea. He's also Thunder Element, so trying to put in some stun resistance or Thunder Blight resistance or anything along those lines would probably be super helpful. I would imagine some sort of thunder resistance actually will become a really mandatory thing if Archtempered actually ends up being very difficult. Because he has a whole lot of attacks that have the potential to leave something like, I don't know, static fields, or just even being near it could apply Thunder Blight. So, I don't know, I could see that potentially being a problem. One thing that I did while practicing here is, you'll see in this fight, I'm pretty much just focusing on the head. I've never really farmed him enough to actually even see how the breaks look significantly. So I figured one of the things that I'm going to do on some of the practice runs against him is actually take the time to break every part individually and just kind of keep welling on it to make sure that's just a single break. Say with horns, I figured out with this one, he only has one head break, but it still leaves one of his horns in a shape where it looks like it might potentially be breakable again. And unless I just messed up and did more sort of splash damage over to the rest of his body than I thought I was, I only ever really got one break, so I would imagine it's just one break. I'm sure there's other people that can tell you this with a lot more definitive nature than I have, but when I'm making these videos, I've tried to avoid looking at other people's guides for specific monsters. I watched a bunch of videos on stuff like tips for a weapon or two here and there, tips on like finding little side things or whatnot, but I've avoided watching anyone else actually actively go over a monster hunt. That way I could just try to figure out things on my own. And you can see me whiff with a flash bomb, which flash bombs are always your friend against flying creatures. If they carry over one thing that made Archtempered kind of frustrating from World, it'll be that the monsters that are susceptible to flash bombs actually become resistant to them really quickly. So I wouldn't expect to be able to use flash bombs to just negate him flying. Of course, Rey Dau doesn't spend massive amounts of time in the air anyway. He does these attacks, but because some of his bigger attacks involve that little flying move, I'd be willing to bet that it still has that cap from the previous game, which if I remember correctly, I think you could flash him 5 times, and then after that it just wouldn't work, period. I could be very wrong. It's been a long time since I've really farmed any Archtempered monsters. So, what little bit carries over? I don't know. One thing I'm hoping that will carry over more from the end of the World and Iceborne sort of series than anything else will be that these Archtempered variants can actually have completely new moves and a few other little surprises built into the point where they almost seem like their own subspecies. That would be really fun. I'd be willing to take that over top of a subspecies because Archtempered always comes with a new armor set, potentially some new weapons. So, you know what? As long as it means we actually get new and more varied forms of the fights, I would settle for them doing Archtempered rather than just giving us a palette swap. Like, take what we already have and turn it into a very spectacular fight. Huh. That was a pretty good little flinch. At least a good timing on one. I know he ends out taking me out at some point during this fight, but it's not a non-preventable death. I'm kind of dicking around a little bit too much in this fight, but that's fine. I'm kind of having fun with it. I think this is only like my 4th or 5th kill of him. And I didn't fight him too much. I fought him the times that you had to in the story, and then I went and fought the Archtempered variant once just to... God, Archtempered. I keep defaulting to that now. I went and fought the Tempered variant once just to kind of see how it goes, and it wasn't super challenging, and then just kind of switched over to the grind with Archveld and Gore because, well, I actually really like those fights. I think this guy's cool, but the rewards for him were never really high enough to tempt me to farm him over top of the other two. And I've really only ever needed one item from him, and I happen to have it, so it wasn't that big a deal. I need one now, but I actually get it in this fight, so I really don't have much motivation to keep fighting him other than maybe crowns. So, I don't know. He's a cool fight. I think he's a really good one to start the whole Archtempered cycle with, because I think he's going to be a very, very good fight in Archtempered format. I'm hoping maybe he'll go to his arena just a little bit faster, or are we going to fight him in a specific location? I haven't taken the time to really look at the two fights that are up. I know one of them's a challenge one, and I'm pretty sure the challenge ones take place in the arena. So, that one's going to be hard. But I would suspect the non-challenge mode one's not going to be that bad. Well, speaking of which, if you haven't went and picked up your rewards from the challenge quest, those are available for pickup now. At least they were for me. I don't know how it is for everyone else. I didn't get the A rank timer one, but I got the other ones. So, this pretty much covers all the bases for him. Not a terrible fight. Stock up on Null Berries if you're not interested in putting any sort of blight resistance in. And then, other than that, just be upgrading your gear. I would be willing to bet money that this will be the first fight where if you don't actually have a decently upgraded set or a really well set up in-game build, that he's going to be a beyond normal level of challenge. Like, as in, you can't just go after him with fresh gear as soon as you hit the right hunter rank. Because there's ways to build up your hunter rank without really farming up your gear. Like, if you're really, really studious about clearing out quests, or you just like building armor sets, and so you build a whole bunch of armor sets, you're leveling up, then once you uncap your hunter rank, it'll just basically shoot up and you'll go from quest to quest to quest. Now, one thing I would bet will happen with this variant of him is it'll be hard enough that you'll need to have decent gear. Unless you're Team Darkside and you just want to go in and kill everything naked, then you probably won't need to. Alright, see? Not a terrible fight in the baseline version. Don't let that deceive you. Archtempered has a tradition of being surprisingly challenging. So, that's it for this fight. Now, how about I give y'all a little bit of preview of another series that I'm getting ready to start working on. But remember, if I can beat it, so can you.